Hi. I tried to call you. I'm so sorry about last night. How is the wolf?
We lost her.
Sorry.
Amy Fleming has been the heart of Heartland for years, but in the jaw-dropping Season 19 finale, everything is about to change. A shocking twist leaves Amy's fate hanging by a thread, and fans will be left in utter disbelief. Could this really be the end of Amy's journey? What happens when the person who held Heartland together is suddenly gone? The storm is here, and it's about to rewrite everything we thought we knew. Season 19 started with hope. Amy had finally begun to find her footing again, stepping into a new chapter of her life while still carrying the weight of Ty's memory. Heartland felt whole again, at least on the surface. She had been working with some of the most challenging horses of her career, proving once again why she was the heart and soul of the ranch. The family, though forever changed, was finding their own ways to heal. Jack remained their steady rock, Lou was balancing her responsibilities with newfound purpose, and even the ranch itself seemed to breathe with a renewed sense of life. But beneath the surface, something was off. It started with small things. A misplaced tool here. A horse acting strangely there. Conversations that once felt natural now carried an underlying tension. Amy dismissed it all as stress. After all, she had been pushing herself harder than ever. But as the days passed, an unsettling feeling began to creep in thick like a storm cloud rolling over Heartland. Then came the phone call, the one that would change everything. In the dead of night, Amy's phone buzzed, a number she didn't recognize. On the other end, a voice, cold, unfamiliar, but laced with urgency. "Amy, you need to come to the barn." Now, her heart pounded. The voice didn't wait for a response before the call cut off, leaving only silence in its wake. Something was wrong. Without hesitation, Amy grabbed her coat and rushed out into the darkness, unaware that this moment would mark the beginning of the end. The barn was eerily quiet when she arrived. The horses were restless, shifting uneasily in their stalls. A cold wind blew through the open doors, sending a shiver down her spine. Then her eyes landed on it. A single note pinned to the wall with a rusted nail. The words sent ice through her veins. Her pulse quickened. Someone had been here. Someone who knew more than they should. Amy stepped back, her mind racing. Was this just a cruel joke, or was it something much more dangerous? Every instinct screamed at her to leave, to run back inside where it was safe. But Amy Fleming had never been one to run from a fight. She reached for the note, her fingers trembling slightly as she pulled it free. The paper was rough, the ink smudged, but the message was clear. This wasn't just about her. This was about Heartland. And whatever was coming next, it wasn't going to stop until it took everything from her. And so the countdown to Amy Fleming's last ride began. Amy stood frozen, the chilling words on the note seared into her mind. The past can't stay buried. A rush of memories flooded her. The struggles, the losses, the moments that had shaped her. But this was different. This wasn't just a painful reminder of what she'd endured. This was a warning, a threat. And it came from someone who knew exactly how to rattle her. The horses stirred restlessly in their stalls, their unease mirroring her own. Heartland had always been a place of safety, a sanctuary where wounds could heal and second chances could bloom. But now, as the cold wind howled through the barn's open doors, it felt like something else entirely. A battlefield. Amy swallowed hard, pushing aside the fear creeping up her spine. She had faced challenges before, from losing Ty to rebuilding her purpose. Whatever this was, she could handle it. At least that's what she told herself. Clutching the note, she turned on her heel, ready to storm back to the house and demand answers from whoever had sent it. But just as she reached the barn doors, a flicker of movement caught her eye. A shadow darted between the trees, vanishing into the darkness beyond the pasture. Amy's breath hitched. Someone was watching, and they weren't afraid to make their presence known. The next morning, Amy tried to shake the unease, but the weight of the night's events clung to her like a second skin. She went about her chores, feeding the horses, checking on Spartan, forcing herself to find normalcy in routine. But no matter how hard she tried, that note burned in the back of her mind. Who had left it? And what did they mean by the past can't stay buried? It wasn't until Lou stopped by later that afternoon that the weight of it all truly settled. "You look like you've seen a ghost," Lou said, leaning against the stable door, concern etched across her face. Amy hesitated. She wanted to tell her sister to confide in her like she always had, but something held her back. Maybe it was the exhaustion, or maybe it was the gnawing feeling that once she spoke the words out loud, there would be no turning back. "Just a long night," Amy finally muttered, brushing Spartan's mane absent-mindedly. But Lou wasn't convinced. "Amy, talk to me. You're scaring me." Amy sighed, finally turning to face her. "Someone left a note in the barn. It said the past can't stay buried." The words hung between them, heavy, unshakable. Lou's expression darkened. "That doesn't sound like some harmless prank." Amy nodded. "I think someone was watching me last night." A beat of silence passed thick with unspoken worry. Amy Lou said carefully, "What if this has something to do with Ty?" The name alone sent a shock through her chest, sharp and sudden. It had been years since he'd been gone, but his presence lingered in every corner of Heartland. The idea that someone could be using his memory to haunt her, it made her stomach churn. Determined to find answers, Amy decided to retrace her steps from the night before. If someone had been watching, there had to be some kind of clue, something she'd missed in the panic of the moment. She returned to the barn as the sun dipped low on the horizon, her nerves thrumming with tension. This time she wasn't alone. Jack had caught wind of the situation. Lou, unable to keep her concern to herself, had told him everything. And if there was one thing Jack Bartlett wasn't about to do, it was let his granddaughter face a threat on her own. "Whatever's going on, we're going to get to the bottom of it," he said, his voice steady but firm. Amy nodded, grateful for his unwavering support. Together they searched the barn, scanning for anything unusual. And then they found it. A second note, tucked behind a bale of hay, hidden just enough to avoid immediate discovery. Amy's hands shook as she unfolded it, her pulse hammering in her ears. Her blood turned to ice. Whoever this was, they weren't done. They were toying with her, leading her somewhere she wasn't sure she wanted to go. But there was no choice now. The past was reaching out, pulling her into something far bigger than she ever could have imagined. And for the first time in a long time, Amy Fleming wasn't sure if she was ready to face what was coming next. Amy could barely breathe as she stood frozen in the dimly lit ranch house, the dial tone ringing in her ears. The weight of the cryptic message, the eerie photograph, the chilling phone call, it was all closing in on her like a tightening noose. Her heart pounded violently in her chest, her pulse a rapid drum against her temples. The words echoed in her mind like a sinister whisper. "You're running out of time." Running out of time for what? To do what? The pieces of this dark puzzle were scattered before her, but she had no idea how they fit together. The only thing she knew for certain was that someone dangerous, was watching her. And they weren't done yet. With shaking hands, she grabbed the mysterious package and rushed upstairs to her bedroom, locking the door behind her. She needed to think, needed to breathe. But her thoughts were racing too fast, her body still trembling from adrenaline. She sat on the edge of the bed, gripping the framed photograph of Ty, running her fingers over the words etched in the corner. He knew the truth. "Do you?" What truth? Ty had never kept secrets from her, at least none that she knew of. The idea that there had been something he never told her, something that had followed her all these years, was enough to make her stomach twist with unease. There were things up there she hadn't touched in years. Old boxes, forgotten memories, remnants of a past life she had tried so hard to move forward from. If Ty had known something, if he had hidden something, it would be there. Grabbing a flashlight, she made her way up the creaky wooden stairs, every step filling her with a sense of foreboding. The attic smelled of dust and aged wood, the air thick with the weight of time itself. Her hands fumbled as she pulled down an old box labeled Ty's Things. She hesitated. A part of her didn't want to do this, didn't want to dig up ghosts that should have been left to rest. But something deep inside told her that she had no choice, that this was the key to everything. She flipped the lid open and began to dig. Old riding gloves, a few tattered notebooks, a couple of Polaroids of them, together their smiles frozen in time. But then, at the very bottom, her fingers brushed against something solid, something out of place. A leather-bound journal. Her breath hitched as she pulled it out, her hands already trembling before she even opened it. The first few pages were filled with Ty's usual handwriting. Training notes, reminders, little sketches of horses and the ranch. But as she flipped deeper, the words changed. The handwriting became messier, more frantic, the ink darker as if pressed into the page with force. Amy, if you're reading this, it means something's gone wrong. Her blood turned to ice. She read faster, her heart hammering. I didn't want to involve you. I thought I could handle it. But I was wrong. There's something happening, something bigger than you know. And if they find out you're looking into it, you're in danger. Amy's hands clenched the pages, her breath coming in sharp gasps. They? Who was they? She kept reading, her eyes devouring every word. It started with the horses. The sick ones. I thought it was just bad luck, but then I found out the truth. Someone was poisoning them, Amy. On purpose. And it wasn't just about the horses. It was about control power money, and I got too close. Her stomach dropped. Poisoning? Power? Someone at Heartland had been hurting the animals. And Ty knew? The words blurred as tears stung her eyes. How had she not seen it? How had she missed this? The next entry was even more chilling. They know I found out. They've been watching me. I can feel it. I don't know how much longer I have, but if anything happens to me, promise me, Amy, don't trust anyone. No one. Not even the ones you think you know. Amy's breath hitched. Not even the ones you think you know. The room felt smaller, the walls closing in on her. The darkness outside seemed deeper, more ominous. Suddenly, every movement in the house, every creak of the floorboards, every whisper of wind against the window felt like a threat. She had to get out. Clutching the journal to her chest, she rushed downstairs, her thoughts spiraling. Who had Ty been afraid of? Who had been watching him? And, more terrifying, were they watching her now? As she reached the bottom of the stairs, something outside caught her eye. A movement, a shadow flickering across the front porch. Someone was out there. Amy's heart pounded so hard, it felt like it might burst from her chest. She ducked behind the doorway, pressing herself against the wall, her mind racing. She peeked out just enough to see a figure, standing just beyond the light of the porch, watching, waiting. Amy's breath caught in her throat as she locked eyes with the figure standing in her dimly lit hallway. Every nerve in her body screamed at her to run, but her feet felt cemented to the floor. The man before her was someone she hadn't seen in years, someone who should have been miles away from Heartland, if not farther. Her mind reeled. What was he doing here? And why now, after all this time? Caleb had left the ranch long ago, his life taking him down a different path. But there was something about the way he stood, his shoulders tense, his gaze dark and unreadable, that sent a shiver through her. "We need to talk," he said again, his voice lower this time, urgent. Amy swallowed hard, forcing herself to step forward. "About what?" she asked, though deep down she already knew the answer. This had to be about Ty, about the journal, about the warning she had received. Caleb glanced over his shoulder as if making sure they were alone. Then, without another word, he reached into his jacket and pulled out a folded envelope. He handed it to her, his fingers brushing against hers briefly before he stepped back. Amy's heart pounded as she unfolded the paper inside. The handwriting was familiar, hauntingly familiar. Ty's. Her eyes darted across the page, devouring every word. "Amy, if you're reading this, it means I never got the chance to tell you myself. I didn't want to keep secrets from you, but I had no choice. What I discovered, it was dangerous, and I couldn't risk putting you in harm's way." Amy's hands trembled as she continued reading. It started with an accident. At least that's what they called it. A horse went missing, then another. Then one turned up injured. Too injured to be a simple fall. But when I started asking questions, I got answers I wasn't supposed to find. There's something happening in Hudson, Amy. Something big. And I got too close to the truth. I think they're watching me. If anything happens to me, don't trust what they tell you. Find Caleb. He knows more than he's saying. Caleb hesitated, but only for a moment. "I'm saying Ty didn't die because of the shooting," he said, his voice grim. "He was murdered." The words hit Amy like a physical blow. The room seemed to tilt around her, her vision blurring at the edges. "No," she whispered. "No, that can't be true." Caleb stepped closer, his eyes locked onto hers. "Amy, I know this is hard to hear, but Ty wasn't just looking into missing horses. He stumbled onto something bigger, something that put a target on his back. He tried to protect you by keeping you out of it. But now whoever did this, they know you're looking." Amy's pulse pounded in her ears. The threatening phone call, the photograph, the journal, it was all connected. Someone had been trying to keep her from the truth. And if what Caleb was saying was right, they had gone as far as to kill to keep it buried. She took a shaky step back, her mind spinning. "Why are you telling me this now?" she asked. "Why didn't you come forward sooner?" Caleb's jaw tightened. "Because I didn't have proof," he admitted. "And I was scared. I thought if I left, if I kept quiet, I'd be safe. But then I got a message. Just like you." Amy's eyes widened. "A message?" Caleb nodded grimly. "A few days ago, no return address. Just a single note inside." He reached into his pocket and pulled out a small creased piece of paper. Amy took it, unfolding it slowly. Her stomach dropped. Amy's entire world was spinning. The weight of Finn's words crushed her, but there was no time to process it. If what he said was true, if Ty had been murdered, if a dangerous group was now after her, then every second counted. Her heart pounded as she ran her hands through her hair, forcing herself to think. Caleb, he had answers. But where was he? And why hadn't he come forward if he knew something? It didn't make sense. Caleb had been Ty's best friend, his closest confidant. If he had any knowledge of what Ty had uncovered, wouldn't he have warned her? The thought sent a chill through her. What if Caleb wasn't missing because he was grieving? What if he was in hiding? What if they had already gotten to him? Amy's stomach twisted at the thought, but she had no choice. She had to find him. She grabbed her phone, fingers trembling as she scrolled through her contacts. Finn watched her with a tense expression, his body language screaming urgency. Calling him is a risk, he warned. If they're watching you, they might be monitoring his phone too. Amy hesitated, then cursed under her breath. He was right. If these people were powerful enough to cover up a murder, then tracking phone calls would be nothing to them. "Then I'll find him in person," she said firmly, already grabbing her coat. Finn exhaled, rubbing his hands over his face. Amy, slow down. If you just show up, you could be leading them straight to him. That realization sent another jolt of fear through her, but it didn't stop her. "I don't care," she snapped. "I need answers." Finn swore under his breath, but didn't argue. Instead, he grabbed his keys. "Then I'm driving." The ride through Hudson was silent, thick with tension. Amy's mind was racing, flipping through every conversation she had with Caleb before he disappeared. Had there been signs? Had he tried to warn her without her realizing it? The more she thought about it, the more uneasy she became. Caleb had changed after Ty's death. He wasn't just grieving, he was paranoid. He started avoiding people, dodging questions, looking over his shoulder like he was being followed. And then one day, he was just gone. Finn pulled into the driveway of Caleb's cabin, cutting the engine. The place was dark, the porch light flickering ominously. Amy's pulse quickened. "Are you sure he's here?" she whispered. Finn nodded toward the side of the house. His truck's here. He wouldn't leave without it. That didn't ease her nerves. If he was here, why wasn't he answering his phone? Why were the lights off? Amy stepped out of the truck, her boots crunching against the gravel. Finn followed closely, his movements cautious. They reached the front door and Amy knocked. Nothing. She knocked again, harder this time. "Caleb, it's me," she called out. Silence. Amy exchanged a worried glance with Finn before gripping the doorknob. To her surprise, it turned. The door swung open with an eerie creak. Finn immediately stepped in front of her, his hand reaching instinctively toward his belt. A habit from his rodeo days where he carried a knife. "Stay behind me," he murmured. He collapsed, his breath hitching. "Go," he choked out. "Find the truth." But Amy couldn't move. Not yet. She dropped to her knees beside him, tears stinging her eyes. "Stay with me," she pleaded. But Caleb's grip loosened. His eyes fluttered closed. He was gone. Rage and grief burned through her veins, but there was no time to mourn. Finn grabbed her arm, dragging her toward the trees as more gunfire rang out behind them. They ran, the sound of their pursuers closing in. Amy's lungs burned, but she refused to stop. She couldn't stop. She clutched the folder like a lifeline, knowing that this evidence, was the only thing that could bring justice, the only thing that could make sure Caleb and Ty hadn't died for nothing. They made it to the truck, Finn shoving her inside as bullets ricocheted off the metal. He floored the gas, the tires kicking up dirt as they sped away, the gunman disappearing into the night behind them. Amy's hands shook as she flipped through the documents again, her breath coming in short, ragged gasps. They had what they needed. But at what cost? Caleb was gone. Ty had been murdered. And now, Amy knew. She was next. She met Finn's gaze, her voice steady despite the fear clawing at her throat. "We finished this," she said. No matter what. Because the truth was out now, and there was no turning back.